Hello everybody and welcome to this reality capture webinar session with myself and Yannick. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day. We've run this slightly later in the day to hopefully catch some people at the end of their day, or maybe depending on which part of the world you're in, it's your lunch break, or maybe it's early morning, but thank you very much for joining us. As you can see, I'm in my home office. Yannick is in the Technodigit office in Lyon in France. Yeah, thanks for joining us today, and thank you for supporting these webinar sessions. So hopefully you find the content useful. So without further ado, basically today this is a follow-up session from the webinar that we hosted a couple of weeks ago, where effectively what the webinar was run as simulated live, which means that we've run 3 sessions and it's a pre-recorded session. What that means is we get a lot of questions asked during the session which we can't respond to. So ordinarily we would respond to everyone via email within a certain time frame. But what we wanted to do with this session was specifically get the questions that had been asked during the webinar, work together with Yannick to propose the answers, and potentially, if we needed to show the data in a live capacity, we could. But yeah, today is all about just getting responses to those questions which you asked, and obviously we'll talk about having the opportunity to ask your own questions throughout the session today as well. So here's the agenda. We'll keep it super brief. Brief introduction, just introduce myself and Yannick. I'm sure you've come across us both before. Then a very brief reality capture overview, just so we can place Cyclone 3DR touch mode in the context of all of our software solutions. We'll do a quick reminder on Cyclone 3DR touch mode. So for that, I'm hoping most of you attended the webinar, but we'll just a very brief recap. And then obviously we've got a Q&A session. So we'll have our predefined Q&A session, which is working through that list of questions. And then we'll open the floor to you guys to actually ask any questions, and feel free just to drop it in the chat window on the right hand side at any point in time. We'll review those questions as we're presenting, and if there's any additional questions, we'll respond to them as best as we can, and then we'll have a summary and a close. So my name's Paul Burrows. I'm the Scanning Solutions Manager in Europe. You don't need to know much more about me, but more importantly, and specifically the person who is the product manager for Cyclone 3DR is Yannick Stenger. So Yannick has got a background in mechanical engineering and civil design, civil engineering design. He joined Hexagon in January 2020, so he's not been with us very long, but he has made a big impact in the time that he has been with us. And previously, he's got a lot of experience in that civil engineering industry. So thank you very much for Yannick for joining us today. You look as happy as you do in your profile picture just there, so that's good. It's good news.
Hello, hello everyone.
Okay, so like we said, questions. We will obviously respond to the questions that have been sent through to us, and then we'll give you the opportunity to ask any questions. So like I said, feel free throughout the duration of the presentation to drop the questions in the taskbar on the right hand side of your screen. Okay, so jumping into the reality capture overview is what I wanted to go through. And normally I have a much more detailed slide, but effectively we break down the field to finish workflow for Leica G Systems into these 4 stages. So we start with the capture phase in the field, move into the preparation phase. That's typically registering the data, cleaning the data, and publishing the data out into our various platforms, so or file formats, whether that's an LGS file, whether that's pushing the data onto Cyclone Enterprise, for example, which is coming out very soon. And then we consume that data in our downstream applications such as CloudWorks or TrueView or TrueView Live. And in the situation we're going to see today, obviously consuming data in Cyclone 3DR and ultimately working with data in 3DR touch mode as well. So that's just a very brief overview of where we are in terms of the portfolio of products. So what is 3DR touch mode? It's all in one, all in the field. It's basically an extension of the Cyclone 3DR application, specifically with BIM inspection as the first application that's been launched as part of this new product or new extension to the product. It gives you real-time results. So we can connect directly to a Fieldworks project, or perhaps we've got an LGS file that we want to work with, or an E57 file, something on the tablet. We can start working with that data immediately in the field and provide reports directly to our stakeholders. Just email it straight from the tablet or share it to them in front of them. It's a single license. This is quite important. If you've got the AEC module or the Pro bundle, you'll have access to this already. If you haven't got those, then just get in touch with us and we can provide you costings. But effectively, for those users who've already got those licenses, it's very easy to start using the touch mode interface. And it fundamentally is guided. It's step by step, similar to the ribbon that you'll see across the top of Register 360. We have exactly the same ribbon that runs across Cyclone 3DR touch mode, and that allows you to just go step by step through the process. And this next slide, actually, you'll see there you go. There's the toolbar that you can see across the top. So effectively, it's simple, very, very simple, nice and easy to use. It's very, very quick, and it provides rich 3D or 2D deliverables on the back end. So whether that's a colorized IFC file, for example, or colorized point cloud showing the deviations for the inspection, or a PDF report on the back end, we can do all that directly from Cyclone 3DR touch mode. So the typical workflow is that we load the BIM model, the IFC file, and we load the scan data. We then do an alignment and we run through some cleaning. So we've got some automatic cleaning routines, so you can specify the distance of the points from a 3D model, for example, and then only use that sub-selection of points to do the analysis. So it's super easy. And then we do the inspection. So this is where typically we will apply a color map or a heat map directly to the 3D model, so we can see those deviations, and we can add flyers and we can add labels directly to that. And then, as I said on the previous slide, we deliver something in terms of a report or screenshots, snapshots, whatever, to allow us to make decisions and share that information with stakeholders. So that's 3DR touch mode in a nutshell. And if you didn't attend the previous session, you can always watch that webinar on demand again. So now this is where we're going to launch into the most important part of the presentation. It's the Q&A with Yannick. So thank you very much to everyone who submitted questions. So the first one that we had was, what motivated Leica G Systems to create this new touch interface? So Yannick, over to you.
Thank you, Paul. I'm taking control of the screen, if you don't mind. So what motivated us? Definitely, so Cyclone 3DR is very popular for its flexibility and its large panel of tools. So for us, it's making sense to offer even more flexibility via a new field-friendly solution, and in particular to deliver reports in the field, in your construction sites. Mm-hmm. And I would say as well that this is a logical evolution. I mean, more and more people use smartphones, touch devices. So in addition, so this is really in addition to the desktop application, it's making lots of sense for us to not to only migrate, but to enlarge our scope with this touch application. Mm-hmm. And finally, this is more about the new UI of touch mode, but the idea, thanks to this new UI, is to deliver faster. In addition to being in the field, having an easy UI to deliver faster, and keeping all the 3DR capabilities and accuracy, of course.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good answer, or answers. Thank you very much. Right, so fingers crossed I can skip to the next slide. Right, okay, so who can use touch mode? I would have thought that would have been a pretty obvious response, but maybe you want to elaborate.
Yeah, it's important to clarify. So first, any current 3DR users can use touch mode now. Then this is part of the product. So you just need to download the last major release, and you can use touch mode. So if you need to achieve any jobs in the field, it's ready for you and for your BIM inspections. Okay. And so the idea, not only 3DR is very popular for surveyors, but what we think is thanks to this new and simple UI, the target is to let facility managers, civil engineers, QA/QC experts to benefit as well from features in the field.
Cool, good.
And finally, anyone who joins Reality Capture ecosystem should definitely give a try to Cyclone 3D touch mode.
Okay, next question then. Okay, so well, this is really important, and this actually was asked not by one, I think maybe 3 or 4 people during the session actually, because we didn't cover it in detail. But yeah, what are the recommended tablet specifications, and can it run on iOS or Android?
Okay, thanks, Paul. So yes, it was a frequent question, and so maybe I should remind that Cyclone 3D is not a mobile application, so not possible to get it from iOS or not working on Android. And so the development that we have done for touch mode is to make it work on Windows Surface Pro. So here I am mentioning the specification. So the recommended specifications are an i7 processor and a 16 gigabytes RAM memory, and I would say that 8 gigabytes RAM memory would be the minimum. And besides, so maybe you are aware of Leica CS35 products based on Windows as well, and we ran some tests of touch mode on the Leica CS35, which has less performances as a Windows Surface Pro, but it's working to achieve a beam inspection in the field.
Okay, and, cool. So I mean, so not. Oh, sorry. Go on. Sorry.
Maybe a final word regarding specifications. So this is point cloud limitation. I'm just switching to the touch mode, and so if you go to the settings, and in particular for the beam inspection, you can see that there is a maximum imported points for your scan, and so the limitation is 30 millions. That we consider more than enough to achieve an inspection in the field. And so, but so automatically, if you import a larger point cloud, it will be reduced up to 30 millions.
Okay, that's excellent. And I think that, yeah, I think the 30 million point limitation actually is probably sensible, obviously, to protect the RAM and the load and everything. But actually, 30 million points is a lot of data, and when you do verification, you don't always need the densest point cloud. So yeah, it makes complete sense. Okay, just trying to skip to the next slide. Maybe you can move us, Yannick.
Okay, you lost control.
Okay, what other kind of use cases are possible in touch mode? So we touched on a few during the webinar presentation itself. So I think we'll probably do a recap of that, but then maybe look at other examples as well, Yannick.
So a quick recap. So 2 weeks ago, I started with a regular beam model as well comparison. I would say that this is the main application for the beam inspection workflow in touch mode. And I also demonstrated an elevator shaft inspection. So you could definitely watch again the webinar for this one. I also demonstrated a use case of progress monitoring, and it was very fast to achieve in this case because the two models, or the model and the point cloud, were aligned, geo-referenced, and so that it was even faster to achieve the global workflow. And finally, for this one, this is not a pure touch mode application, but I also demonstrated a use case to show you how it is easy to switch from touch to desktop and achieve any tasks, more advanced tasks. Thanks to,
I think that was really interesting to me, the fact that we could very, very quickly switch back to touch mode. So it's the same install. It is literally a mode, and you can just flip back if there's another function that you want to achieve on the tablet as well. And obviously, when we did the surface levelness example, you were still on a tablet, but you were just taking advantage of the full capabilities within 3DR. So yeah, okay, that's really useful to know.
Thanks, Paul. And so regarding the applications, so those use cases were focused on building construction, but it can be used for facility management, tunnel infrastructure, and so the beam inspection workflow can be useful for any comparison between a design model. Actually, not only a beam model, so the workflow is compatible with mesh and CAD objects as well, and to compare this design model to the reality. And maybe so some other use case that I can mention to create a color map. So surface analysis. So it is possible directly in touch mode if your BIM model is properly prepared for and can be compared to the reality. Work planness. For this one, maybe I should show you, and this is what we have done in touch mode is to keep flexibility. So what I can do, for example, is defining or selecting my good UCS, and thanks to the parameter and the inspection options. So I'm selecting Y here, and I can customize my inspection thanks to this UCS. So it gives flexibility, and so quickly take I would say approximately 10 seconds to get a color map showing the deviation according to the normal direction. So this is a wall planness example here, and then I can define.
Yeah, that's an excellent little example. And then obviously you can choose your color. You can choose your color ramp accordingly. You know how much detail you want to pull out of that. So yeah, it looks good.
Jumping back to PowerPoint. Okay, and another possibility, and I think we got a question, Paul, on clash detection. So you can load a B model of a future project in an existing building and defining via an appropriate gradient a color map that will outline the clashes. So this is another possibility because it's involving a comparison between a B model and a point cloud. Okay.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I mean, we demonstrate this as during the session, but is it possible to directly import an IFC or an RBT file into touch mode? So I think that it's quite important because there a lot of people. IFC is typically the standard. There's a lot of Revit users out there. So yeah, if you can answer that question for us, Yannick. And then
so that's a very important question, and I mean we got lots of requests regarding this one. So for touch mode, you need to go through a preparation file. So the idea is to import in desktop mode your IFC or Revit model, and this is important because you should definitely be careful of the contents of the BIM model. So I have personally experienced a BIM model with 30,000 elements, and I know it was crazy for any kind of BIM software. And so, and thanks to the new and the upgraded support of BIM model in 3DR, and you can watch some recent videos on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, showing how we manage now BIM model. So this is the preparation file is definitely a good way to check and to be sure that when you go in the field, you are sure that you have the area of interest for your inspection and a model that is appropriate for an inspection. And in the case you arrive on the work site and you haven't prepared your preparation file, it is still possible to, with your Windows device, to launch the desktop application and drag and drop an IFC, check it, and automatically, when you will switch to touch mode, you will have the ability to start directly the BIM inspection workflow. So this is also a possibility if you have to import your IFC in the field.
I had a situation where, like you say, I had an IFC with a lot of elements that I wasn't interested in. I just wanted the facade. So that's where using the new some of the new functionality within 3DR, just the ability, have the ability to turn them off, remove them, hide them, whatever, and just pick on the layers that I was actually interested in. So yeah, good point. Right,
so,
next.
Yes, maybe another one regarding the upgraded support of BIM model. So if you don't need MEP equipment, it's easy to unselect them when you import your IFC model, and you can create many submodels, one focused on the walls, another one focused on the floors. So it's a preparation step, but definitely in the field it will give you more flexibility.
Okay. What's the price of touch mode? Quite an important one. So yeah, and I
Yeah.
always say, whenever I'm running a webinar, I'm very clear on not talking about pricing. You know, we've always said one, you know, there's various reasons for that. One, we're talking about a solution. It's down to the customer to decide whether they want it, but also there's obviously regional variations, and we're often doing a global webinar. So I can't quite rightly say, yeah, the price in Europe is X, and then in US and Canada it's a different price. So yeah, what is the price of touch mode, Yannick?
So it's part of the product. So TouchMod is not exactly a new product. This is a new interface. So if you purchase Cyclone 3DR, you will have two interfaces. So the desktop application and TouchMod with the panel of touch workflows. So it means no extra costs. And so the idea is to provide the different workflows via the licensing policy, and the BIM inspection workflow is obviously part of the AEC edition and the Pro edition as well. Okay.
Okay, so how many scan positions can be imported at the same time? So I assume this is limited. Again, obviously, this is goes back to the point cloud load limits that you specify within the settings, Yannick.
Sure. So not in the settings. So there are two ways to load a scan in touch mode. So the first way is Cyclone Fieldworks. So this is a logical feature for us because Cyclone Fieldworks runs on Windows tablets as well, and it's possible to load one model space at a time. Maybe this is something that I haven't demonstrated during the webinar. And so
just to reiterate, for those that might not have seen it before, Fieldworks is an application that runs on Windows tablets that allows you to work with the P-series scanners. So the idea is that you can scan, you can import, you can register a georeference, and you can create a model space directly on this Windows tablet in the field. So then what Yannick is going to demonstrate is a direct connection to that Fieldworks database, which would effectively be on the same tablet.
Okay, so you can see that the loading from Cyclone Fieldworks, it means one model space for each project. And if you load a local file, so E57, FGS, PTS, so I'm not an expert of the limitations of those formats, but all the scan positions of each file will be imported.
Okay. So when might you want to switch? I think you've already covered this use case actually, but when might you want to switch between touch and desktop mode? And because obviously we've already told people you can do that, and it's very easy. It's, you know, it's nice, simple flick of the switch, so to speak. But when might you want to do that?
So indeed, so 2 weeks ago, I demonstrated the use case of the surface analysis, totally achieved in desktop mode. And the start was the previous use case of the progress monitoring in touch mode. But during the workflow, you may want to achieve advanced features that are not provided in touch mode. So the idea for us or in touch mode is to have a very simple UI, and that will cover, I would say, 95% of the applications with the basic options. But it may happen that you need a very advanced features, and so this is why it's possible to switch from your workflow to the desktop mode and go back and finish your task. So definitely creating a UCS. So I mentioned the application of the wall plumbness, so it can be useful. So to create a UCS, so it's possible to create one in your preparation file, and so you won't need to switch between the two modes during the touch workflow. Another example could be also to define a customized gradient. So we are providing 3 prepared or favorite color maps in touch mode, but you may need to have your own gradient. So this is another example. At the end of the workflow, so a 2D PDF report is created, but you may want to customize and benefit from the report editor features and create a 3D PDF. And also the cleaning tools. I can show you quickly. So the cleaning part of the workflow, two possibilities are provided. So cleaning according to distance and having the limit box. So I don't have a limit box here, but so there are the two features to clean your data. But you may want to use automatic tools, other automatic tools in the regular desktop application, or even the clean separate tool. We tested it, and we can get good results working on a touch screen. So that's really great. And more, of course. And finally, I would say that any report, any project created in touch mode is compatible totally with the desktop application. And so after your job in the field, you may need to achieve the tasks in your office. So it's possible to work on the same data in desktop mode from this project in the field.
Okay, thank you. So this came up again. We had that asked. I don't know what we said in the webinar to allude to the fact that we might need a web connection, but that came up as a couple of times from different people. So must the tablet be connected or online to run touch mode? And I mean, obviously, people might be out on site and not have that connection. So can we just clarify that statement? Because as far as I'm aware, there is no requirement for an online connection.
No, indeed, Paul. So online connection is not required. And I think this is the same for Cyclone 3D desktop mode. So Cyclone 3D in general, desktop or touch mode, doesn't require a connection to internet. And maybe one recommendation, at least, is to valid your license. So to get to enable a valid EID via CLM before going in the field. And so it can be achieved via two ways. So the borrowing option is possible for offline field job. And we also recently improved the licensing of 3DR, and now it is rehosting is unlimited. Rehosting the license of 3DR.
I think that's vitally important, Yannick. And some people, I imagine most of the people on the call probably already do have Leica solutions, so they're familiar with the CLM tool. But yeah, the ability to borrow a license, so you can take it away and it's at the office, or this unlimited rehosting. So I think previously some licenses have got a limit of maybe 3 rehostings in a lifetime or per year. So that ability to do that in an unlimited capacity will help a lot of people. Yeah, totally, I agree. So next slide, please.
Yes, so I don't have a slide for CLM, but so I would recommend to install the very last version of CLM, and it's very easy to borrow a license. The new version.
There's actually, with the last set of releases, the 2021 releases, there was a new CLM which is even more streamlined than the previous ones and incredibly stable, but at least from my point of view in testing. So that's good. Right, so this is a good one for 3DR because I think you're very proactive with it, but how frequently will updates be released?
So first, this is a reminder that this is one product, so any updates will concern desktop mode, but also touch mode. Any bug fix or improvements can concern the two modes. So another reminder, but we deliver minor release every month, mainly including bug fixes and sometimes improvements. And so I can tell you that the major release happened approximately 3 weeks ago, and we delivered a minor version yesterday. So including some bug fixes and also an improvement for which much higher performance importing DXF file format. So you can run the beam inspection workflow with a DXF design model, for example. Approximately regarding the major releases, I would say that it's approximately twice a year, and so every 6 months. And so the idea is to deliver big new features at each major version. And
Okay. Oh, sorry.
final word, Paul. So just another reminder, but we added in the 2021.1 version an auto update feature, and it's much easier to check if any updates is available. And this new feature embedded in the product will launch the downloading and then the installation.
I was just about to say, because I'd forgotten about that bullet point, that I think the way that you've implemented the update is really, really good. So now, like this morning when I logged in, the first thing it did was flashed up and said there's a new version. You click the link in there and it instigates the update. So I think there's something that we can learn for other products as well, not across the business. It is much easier. And like you say, the two major releases per year is kind of aligned with what we do on the with Reg 360 and Cyclone Register, for example, and CloudWorks. So we typically have a release, end of Q1, end of Q3. We don't quite have minor releases every month in terms of bug fixes, but we certainly are having, occasionally, where there's a hot fix that we may need to release. So with our new naming conventions and everything having a yearly naming convention with the point release updates, it just makes it much easier to keep track of. So yeah, okay, good response, thank you. So next slide, please, Yannick. Okay, this is all right. Well, I'll leave this to you. What are the next touch mode features? Because obviously, after the webinar, we saw a good influx of leads and inquiries. Had a really nice message from someone who watched the session and they bought the licenses the next day after seeing your demonstration, Yannick. So well done. But yeah, what are the next touch mode features that are coming?
So I cannot tell too much about this, but at least, and for us, this is pretty obvious. So I can share with you that we are working now to embed a direct connection to Cyclone 360 as well. So in addition, so the same way it is a direct connection to Cyclone Fieldworks. So we know that Cyclone 360 is very popular, and we are working on a solution to share lightweight data wireless between 360 and touch mode. So this is definitely the first coming feature in touch mode, and then we will add more and more touch mode workflows. So if you have any, so I won't say too much about this, but if you have any ideas or requirements, don't feel free to write them in the chat, and we will consider your wishes.
I think that's quite a nice offer, Yannick, to those people that have managed to stay the course with this session, is if you've got a particular request, drop it in the questions box, and we'll consider that as part of the planning, at least anyway. And then so final, I don't know whether this is finally, I'm assuming it might be final, but what tips do you recommend when using touch mode, Yannick?
So I have probably mentioned some of them during the Q&A session. So the UCS, so maybe the third time I'm talking about this one, but this is definitely a recommendation. So preparing a UCS in your preparation file, or that's a very good way to, so it's easy thanks to this new UCS selector, and for the navigation, so your model will be perfectly aligned to the UCS. So it will give you more flexibility when you navigate in the scene. I can show you the front view as well. And the second reason is to achieve customized inspection thanks to the forced projection option in the inspection. The second tip is the limit box that I really recommend to use. And so I'm going back to the wall plumbness application. And so what I can do, I can hide the dialog box. And we implemented a new tool to edit the limit box. And so here, this is what I used it to focus on the wall. And so maybe I can do. So it's easy to grab with your finger. So on the left part, but also on the right part of the scene. And for example, you can also define some values, and this is so easy to use. And for the alignment step, I would say that This is very important to get some transparency to align the BIM model to the point cloud. And a last tip, benefit from the workflow ribbon to save time in your workflow. I think I showed this one in the progress monitoring use case. But if you are, for example, your scan and your BIM model is or are properly aligned at the beginning of the workflow with a good geo-referencing, you can directly switch to another step by clicking here, and it will. So this is a good tool to save time in your workflow, and also to have flexibility if you need to go back and select, for example, another part of the model, or okay, you need to do some cleaning. So that's one of my recommendations, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, they're all entirely valid. I think the UCS thing is a given. That's kind of what we talk about when we're generally when we're doing scanning stuff, is defining UCSs, working with common UCSs, making sure everything is aligned. The limit boxes, it helps. I think you showed a really nice example using the limit box when you were doing the elevator shaft case study during the live session. And yeah, the workflow ribbon. Because obviously in Reg 360, that's quite a defined workflow. You kind of, you load, you prepare, you finalize, you publish. So it's you follow the steps. You don't really jump backwards and forwards. So I think the flexibility to kind of miss steps out, like you said, if you've already got a point cloud and a 3D model aligned, then obviously you don't need to do any more tweaking. The one thing I would say to anyone who's on this session is the speed at which we can do the alignment. So you do a very quick visual alignment, and then you let the software take over and effectively do a cloud to model global alignment, and it's very, very quick. Also, those cleaning tools, for me a tip is just to always use the cleaning tools, because and have a play with the tolerances, because you can get some really nice examples and get rid of a lot of noise in the data set that you're not interested in analyzing. So and it's great to use the model as the basis for the cleaning, which is what we can do in the desktop mode, but it's more important in the field mode to really strip out the data that you're interested in. So do we have any more questions, Yannick, or is that the last one?
I don't think so. Maybe a recap at the end on learning resources, but it was not over. But so regarding the tips,
watch the webinar
don't forget to watch again the webinar, of course. Okay, so I don't know if there are questions.
No, we've only had the one question actually, which is fine. So we may get some later on, but it was basically asking what algorithm we were using for the point cloud reduction. So whether it was just a standard kind of percentage strip out, or whether you're using prior.
Yes, standard percentage reduction.
So nothing really exciting there, but yeah. So questions wise, hopefully we've answered everyone. So I think whilst there's no questions in the box, Janet, we'll move on to the close. Okay. So it was another question, but I think it's an important information to share, and so I'm showing. So I can mention 3 important learning resources. So via the official web page, and I think Makena will copy the links in the chat. So if you need to practice touch mode, so we have our beginner's guide that you can find on our official web page, and all the samples. So for basic tutorials, but also advanced tutorials, and touch mode is part of the beginner's guide. We also so our YouTube channel has been recently completed with a new playlist focused on touch mode, and I provided a couple of videos pretty detailed. So I would recommend those ones to check the whole workflow step by step. And finally, that's important to mention because we released, I would say 2 or 3 weeks ago, our first e-learning program. And so this one is focused on fundamentals. And another e-learning course is part of the plan and should be available before the summer. I think, yeah, that's really, really important, Yannick, because different people learn in different ways. You know, for example, you know, my preference is to have kind of those short form YouTube tutorials. I kind of, you know, dip in and dip out. But some people like to sit and spend, you know, a few hours learning where the e-learning program comes in. And the guys who put the e-learning together have done a fantastic job with that course. So, I mean, that's useful anyway, regardless of, you know, the touch mode. That is a really fantastic resource. Just to remind anyone who wants to do the e-learning, you need to have a CCP, a Leica CCP, and a MyWorld account in order to access that information. But the links are in the chat. So if you want to access that, then you can just access those through the chat window within the GoToWebinar panel. And I think, you know, that information will also be included in any follow-up email. So if you haven't managed to attend today, talking to those people who didn't attend, no worries, it's no problem, because you will have that information sent to you as well as part of the follow-up email, plus a link to this recording so that you can review it as well. Okay, so thank you, Yannick.
And I think we are done. Yes. So the fundamentals course released last month.
Okay, so there's our details. Feel free to contact us if you want to, if you would like to. By all means, email is probably the easiest way. If you've got any questions or queries, you can, of course, reach us on social, LinkedIn, or various places like that as well. So we're more than happy to connect and discuss. And again, as Yannick quite kindly suggested, if you've got any fantastic ideas that he can use in the next generation versions, then you know, if you've got a great idea for some field-based workflow, which might be beneficial to not just you, but, you know, lots of other people, then have the conversation. You may be rewarded with a free hat or a free mug or something. There's a way of saying thank you for your help. So yeah, wrapping up. I can't remember what the next slide is now, Yannick, actually. So I think it may just be the closing slide. Yeah, thank you very much, guys. So yeah, thanks for attending. For those of you who managed to make it to the end, thank you very much for your patience and your time. Sorry for running slightly over. I'm sure people have got places to go now, regardless of where they are in the world. So thanks once again for supporting these webinar sessions. Thank you very much to Yannick. So Yannick for putting together the case studies in the original webinar, the video content, and obviously the program, the actual solution, the application, but also helping me answer those questions that we got as part of the original presentations as well. So yeah, thank you to everyone. Have a good evening. And we look forward to catching you on the next webinar session, which will be all about Leica Cyclone Enterprise. That is on June the 15th. So if you follow myself or Yannick, you'll probably see more information. And obviously, Cyclone Enterprise is a solution that we can link into via Cyclone 3DR, or we will be able to in the very near future as well, load that data from Cyclone Enterprise. So anyway, that wraps up our Cyclone 3DR Touch Q&A session. Have a good evening. Thank you very much, Yannick. And we'll take care. We'll see you all soon.
Thanks, Paul. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.